You're listening to Fintechs, a podcast that explores the innovations and challenges in Canada's fintech landscape. My name is Sue Britton. I'm the CEO of Firefly Growth and an entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience in the financial industry. I also serve on the FinPay committee, and I'm an advisor for Holt Exchange. Join us as we sit down with industry leaders, trailblazers, and pioneers to discuss their journey, the evolution of fintech, and what's next for Canada's ever-dynamic fintech ecosystem. Our guest today is Faye Pang, Country Manager for Canada at Xero. Xero is on a mission to become the most trusted and insightful small business platform in the world. Their accounting software and 1,000 app partner ecosystem, which I've heard from many in the industry is amazing, is used by over 3 million subscribers around the globe to transform the way they do business. Faye has an impressive track record. I did some poking around in growing businesses. Before joining Xero 3 years ago, Faye was general manager with Uber for 5 years and has a pretty cool background in the food, beverage, packaged goods industry with the likes of like McDonald's and Cadbury. So like really interesting background. Anyhow, welcome to the podcast, Faye.
Thank you so much for having me, Sue. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. So, let's start with the, story about Xero. Tell us a little bit more about, the Xero value proposition.
Yeah, and you did a really nice job teeing me up in that intro. But just to build on what you said, Xero is a cloud-based small business platform. We were founded in Wellington, New Zealand about 17 years ago, a tiny apartment in Wellington, New Zealand. And our founder, Rod, had a dream. He said, there's this new technology called the cloud. What if I use this to collaborate with my accountant in real time? What would that mean for me? And what would that mean for my small business if we were talking from the same source of truth, if the data was constantly updated and timely, if I could generate insights off of that? So from those humble beginnings 17 years ago, we now serve, the number is actually nearly 4 million small business customers around the world. Wow. While we're growing, nearly 4 million customers around the world. And you mentioned our ecosystem. It's one of the things I'm proudest of. We've got over 1,000 app partners that help small businesses with everything from timesheet and scheduling to payroll to additional reporting to capturing their carbon footprint and doing carbon accounting. So anything a small business owner or advisor could need, you can generally find in our app ecosystem. In addition to that, we have relationships with hundreds of financial institutions around the world, banks and otherwise, really helping small businesses access their data and leverage that data to unlock a range of solutions, right? That open platform and that flow of data between the different tools that you're using to run your small business. It's just going to help you stay on top of your books. It's going to help you access capital more easily, and it's going to help you manage, your overall business a lot more tightly. So that's the core proposition, born in the cloud, connected to all of these apps and financial institutions, and then just a really powerful tool to help small businesses focus on, what we talk about is like focusing on running their business and not looking backwards and managing compliance and understanding their financial position.
Very interesting. I was reviewing, I think it was a study that you put out recently. Maybe you can talk a bit about that, because one of the things that struck me and resonated with me as a small business was just the role that advice plays for small businesses.
Yeah. You're referring to the Money Matters report, Sue? Or?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we do research all the time to try to understand the psyche of Canadian small business owners, what's happening. And so the Money Matters report that you're referencing, we released this past September. And that report was really us surveying over 1,000 Canadian small businesses to understand how they're feeling about the inflationary environment, looking at their payments methods and how business owners manage their cash flow. It was really clear there the important role that advisors and bookkeepers play. But the other key insights I would draw out from that is payment options. So 2/3 of business owners in Canada are using cash and credit. Only 1/3 are using digital and online payment gateways. So I know this is a topic near and dear to your heart, but that's a big opportunity for us, right? In terms of digitizing payments to enable small business owners to get paid faster, right? So where cash and credit are still the de facto, there's a big opportunity. And to build on that, what we found in the research was during these times, the higher fees associated with that continue to be a barrier for Canadian small businesses. So expensive fees are some of the biggest barriers to adopting digital payments, perceived or real. And for 2 and 5, so 41% of those we surveyed said that that's the main barrier for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we think that's really critical as you think about how might we make it easier for Canadian small business owners to operate in the environment that we are in today.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I don't know if this was in your latest research, but how much of that is also that they don't, maybe they haven't understood what the opportunities are to use some of, let's say, the apps in your ecosystem, and the bank's payments offerings are limited. Just in my opinion, obviously, it's just my opinion. But even moving money between accounts is tough. And small business people are not experts. So, how much of the awareness of these alternatives kind of sort of plays into the challenges that small businesses are having?
Yeah, I don't have the specific data stats on this, but I can tell you from multiple studies that we've done, that's certainly part of it, right? Understanding what are my choices and how do I compare A versus B versus C is holding small business owners back from taking that leap. That being said, we do see them going to their advisors. So one of the big things we're really passionate about at Xero is instead of DIY, do it yourself, think about DIT or do it together. Only 55% of Canadian small businesses are regularly using an accountant or bookkeeper. Right. So for those cohort, they are going to them and saying, what are my best options here? What's the lowest way for me to move, cheapest way for me to move money? Or I've got these cross-border payments I need to make. Who should I be using? Should I be looking at RBC Pay Edge, et cetera? So there's an opportunity there for the advisor to play a role, but nearly half of Canadian small businesses are not actively engaging with those advisors. And so they're left to their own research and word of mouth, which is it can be a challenge.
Yeah. I was walking in the beautiful woods with my neighbor the other day. Both of us needed some fresh air, and she was talking about her husband who runs 2 franchise locations of a kind of an upscale coffee store. I'm sure I'm getting this all wrong, but anyway, the point is that, he was in a different industry before doing this. And accounting is absolutely no clue, and it's causing him so much stress.
Yeah. First of all, there's no way for me to fact check that story. So it's true as far as I can tell. But I hear you, right? When you talk to small business owners, and I try to make a point to talk to their customers every week, is no one got into it to say, I can't wait to get to the accounting part of running my small business, right? No. That's just, you have to do the compliance component, but no one is really passionate. Very few are very passionate about it. And so that's where our philosophy really comes in, which is the more that you can lean on tools and technology like Xero and our app partners to automate some of those manual tasks, to surface the insights, to help you with compliance components that you need to do, like GST filing or your year-end taxes, payroll remittances, et cetera, the more you can spend time on what you really love, which is making the cappuccinos, interacting with your customers, and building your business, right? So that resonates with me.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned RBC, and I know you've got partnerships with BMO and Scotia, and you mentioned RBC Pay Edge. What do you think, from those experiences partnering with those financial institutions, what's the good thing? What are the benefits for fintech companies in partnering with financial institutions?
I think it's critical, right? No one fintech or financial institution operates in a vacuum. Every single small business customer in Canada has tentacles in a bunch of different places for different purposes as part of their business. So in order to best serve that small business customer, we have to partner together. We have to think about how our systems and our data can be integrated to save them time and to surface more valuable insights, right? So that's always been a philosophy of Xero's, and we've been partnering with FIs around the world since our inception. And we know how important it is for Canadian small businesses, particularly here in Canada. Like, we have to help them stay on top of their financial position, getting those daily transactions from the banks through some of those partnerships, for instance, through BMO and Scotiabank, is critical, right? Today, so many of them, as you know, they're relying on screen scraping and credential sharing to get that data from their bank account into their accounting platform. That's a really poor quality solution, right? It breaks all the time. It is highly unreliable. They restrict it. It's frustrating at times. And so there's so much opportunity to improve that. And that's really been the core that's been driving our partnerships to date, has been trying to solve that for, I call it table stakes. How do you get our mutual customers' data from your system into ours as seamless as possible? But those table stakes start to really get interesting and exciting when you think about, well, what might that then unlock? Right? How can we work together to surface products and support offerings, access to capital for those small businesses now that we have that sync, right? And now that we've got that data and it's put into a platform like Xero, which will then enable that small business customer to get really rich insights, move from hindsight to foresight. Now we're starting to talk about cash flow forecasting. Now we have visibility to their AP and their AR, right? Now when they're adding employees and you can start to project out. So there's some really interesting things that you could do, and frankly, benefit that we can offer the small business client together when we build on those partnerships. So I'm excited about that future vision. Right now, getting the transactions is just like step one.
Yeah, I love that. I'm Central One, which is, for those who don't know, a large credit union service provider for Ontario and BC credit unions, and they held a conference in Vancouver at the end of November, and I moderated a panel with Ben Harrison, Adam from Flinks, and a gentleman named James from Innovation Credit Union, and we talked about partnering. And one of the basic things that I said, it was my little pitch at the end, was, if you're a financial institution, just make sure you give them access to their accounting system. Like, make this easy for them.
Thank you.
Because it's the one thing you can do that would take a massive annoyance away from a small business who doesn't have that. And anyway, so hopefully I resonated with some people, but I really want to talk about the RBC Pay Edge, because I know that RBC. I don't know RBC super well, but I know Pay Edge was to some extent an acquisition of a company that they did, and often those don't go so well, and so it sounds like it's going well. But before we go there, can you and this is a bit of a unplanned question, so I hope it's okay, but can you talk about some of Xero's maybe more innovative customers? And they don't have to be in Canada specifically. Actually, I more mean part of financial institution partners. Like, could you paint a picture of what some maybe more progressed markets have done with Xero?
Sure. Yeah, we've got partners in APAC that we've worked with that have plugged into Xero and our financial APIs. We've got 11 public-facing APIs at Xero for a multitude of different data points within our system, and we have financial institution partners globally that have plugged into, as I mentioned earlier, like intelligently surface capital to our mutual customers and capital like lending opportunities based off the data that they're pulling from Xero. So if you think about it, lending is all about risk mitigation and understanding what's the likelihood to pay and how do I triangulate all of these different factors. Wouldn't it be so much richer if you had access to the general ledger, right? And you understood the sort of core accounting piece of it. So that's been a really exciting partnership. We've partnered with as an example, Monzo in the UK and done, sort of reciprocal referral agreements and really helping them turbocharge their small business offering. And that's been mutually beneficial. Obviously, they were able to build that off the back of open banking 5 years ago. But it's a promise that we think we can bring to Canada is how do we actually partner with some of these financial institutions to offer sort of a joint, almost bundled small business package, right?
Yeah.
You get your bank account and then you get your accounting software, access to this amazing ecosystem, all the tools that you need to run your business. So really encouraged by some of the partnerships there that our team has done in the UK.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well then I'm still going to wait to come back to RBC because you just mentioned something.
We can talk about RBC for sure.
Yeah, you just mentioned something really important. So not that long ago, I guess we should probably mark the week. It should be like a, I don't know, Ottawa releases all, important, regulatory changes in November 2023 or something like that. But a lot of stuff has just recently happened. And I know you've been, watching very closely, but also have spoken a lot about open banking. And so, I'm a glass half full. I think it is, I think we're at the end of, when. I think actually we know when now, so it's going to be next year. And there's real solid commitment to that in Ottawa. What's when you're, how have you been involved in open banking? What's your kind of position or what's the opportunity?
Yeah, just for record keeping, November 21st, 2023.
Okay,
the release of the fall economic statements.
There you go.
We can call it OB Day.
Oh, I love that.
Really, we've been over the moon excited. Since I joined Xero, this has been an advocacy issue that we have been watching and participating in very closely. Because we've seen the benefits in other markets, right? We have the advantage of being a global company that's seeing what that openness can bring in Australia, the impact that it has had on the ecosystem in the UK, right? Not just from a fintech perspective and really a growing, healthy, thriving fintech ecosystem, but on our side, knowing that those small businesses are now, they have easier access to capital, right? That the pain of bank feeds breaking and screen scraping and all of that, while not completely erased, is highly reduced, right? So because we've seen it and seen the future in other markets, we felt very confident advocating for that here and knowing that would mean big changes for our customers here. So since I joined Xero 3 years ago, we've been very strong in this advocacy, working with Fintechs Canada and our colleagues and partners there, advocating with the financial institutions and trying to build partnerships while also simultaneously thinking about how do we work together in a world where open banking is here, and really trying to bring to life the benefits, right? A lot of times in the dialogue, you hear talks about use case. Well, what's the use case, right? For us, we've really been focused on the small business use case, obviously our world and what we know here at Xero, but the small business use case and how we believe it will materially improve the time that small businesses need to spend reconciling their books. Our belief that it's going to materially improve the access that they have to capital because the lenders are going to have more data on which to base their decisions. The ability that it's going to have to improve payment times, right? Stuff like that, just those key metrics that are so critical for a small business. We think open banking is going to have a really, really profound impact. And we've seen that, right, in the UK, that small businesses had an outsized amount of the benefit from the release of the open banking regime. I think probably more than most people expected. But it's precisely because there is so much integration between all these systems and so much of what they do today is highly manual. So, it's been a pet project for us for 3 years. We couldn't be more excited about the strength of the statement that was made on the 21st. And at this point, we're just, really committed to helping make that come true and make that a reality so that Canadian small businesses can benefit.
That's great. I hope, I don't know exactly how, the sort of the key things that I think people are a little bit nervous about, although it was, I think it was Daniel from Co-host who's said on another podcast that we just did with Fintechs A, just did with him, that there's not enough detail for people to get, too up and, uppity. He didn't use that word. That's my word. About, kind of some of the things in there that people went, oh, what? Like the government's going to, play a role in, in the governance with an entity. And I know that accreditation is something that they are very firm that they will be doing. And I think that's a good thing. At the end of the day, we need a fair and objective process, I think, for accreditation. So, but I'm sure that's not a view shared by everyone. But it is interesting. I think that your ongoing involvement in this will be important as they start to define some of the, at the end of the day, as I think I mentioned before this, that I was in Ottawa a week ago, and I met with some folks from finance, and their heaviest hand, I think, will be getting things in place, not necessarily ongoing, right? Yeah. So there's a lot still left to be discussed with industry, and so there's still. I agree with that statement completely, Sue. I think there's still a lot of road to be paved, but just trying to celebrate the indication and the strength of that. And for what it's worth, like in the UK and the RBI, the implementation entity, I think there's good precedent. And while we want, a made in Canada solution for this, I think we also can learn a lot from other regions that have moved ahead of us and just, take some of those elements, which I think is, you saw a lot of in the, in some of the statements. So, we have a lot of financial institutions in Canada. I mean, I know we don't, the majority of Canadians and small businesses are served by the big ones, but do you think that we're going to see some interesting approaches from some of them in terms of, almost promoting, connect your accounting platform to your bank account? Like, do you think that there'll be more of a proactive approach or a reactive approach from financial institutions? And I would say credit unions, obviously, smaller FIs too, right?
I hope so. I mean, listen, I think what you're scratching at is innovation and competition, right? And overall, very pro both of those things, right? Because I think if you are really truly thinking about what's best for the Canadian consumer and the Canadian small business, competition is the thing, because competition breeds innovation, breeds competition, breeds innovation. And ultimately that means offerings get better, prices come down, fees come down, and Canadians benefit. So I hope so. And I hope that folks who are listening to this or working at those institutions see the massive opportunity that certainly we do here at Xero, which is Canadian small businesses are underserved. They're not adopting digital tools at the same rate as their global counterparts. Productivity has largely remained stagnant. They're still doing far too many things manually, and they're still paying far too much for very basic banking services, as having recently set up a bank account for yours. So, I think that is all of those things to me, while not great right now, just speak to the opportunity we have as an ecosystem to go do better for our small business customers.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that. Well, hopefully they will, because I think that kind of value exchange should benefit all. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get to RBC. So RBC Pay Edge. I know you don't work for them, but maybe you could explain a little bit about what RBC Pay Edge is, and then maybe talk about how that partnership is structured, and what might be unique about that versus other FI partnerships.
Yeah, and maybe I'll reverse answer your question, second question
Okay.
first, and the first
Okay.
one, because, we mentioned a couple of other FIs earlier, like such as BMO and Scotiabank. Those partnerships are really around getting that bank feed, so that transactional data flowing from the banks into Xero, and into the Xero account of our mutual customer to really support reconciliation, analytics, reporting, overall health metrics of the small business. That's one partnership use case that we have today. The RBC Pay Edge one is different, obviously, because they're a payment service, right? And so that's a payments integration into Xero, which is separate and distinct from the bank feeds. This one's really allowing our mutual customers to efficiently pay their outstanding bills in Xero through RBC's Pay Edge service, right? So, and Pay Edge can process domestic, cross-border, international payments. And so they're two different integrations, but the Pay Edge one is exciting because of everything I mentioned earlier around late payment times and, this cash flow crunch that Canadian small businesses are facing in high inflationary environment, stagnant sales. Everyone is sort of talking about cash being king, and a lot of small businesses feeling that crunch right now, to the extent that they can digitize their payments, that actually improves the cash flowing through the system, right?
Interesting.
So the Pay Edge integration really allows us to simplify that process of making payments. And because it supports domestic, cross-border, and international, it covers off a lot of bases. And with the specific, if I double click on cross-border as an example, it's going to support the thousands of businesses. We know so many Canadian businesses have, they buy or sell products and services across the border. This is going to allow them to do that more seamlessly.
That's great. That's great. I mean, smart of RBC as well, right? Because that gives them, as part of your ecosystem, the ability to attract new customers that don't currently have that capability. But
exactly. And it's to go back to what's the customer problem we're solving. That process can be so manual, monotonous, and error prone today, right? So to the extent that you can use an integration to automatically pull those bills in, seamlessly pay them, do the reconciliation and the journal entries afterwards, like every step of the bookkeeping process that you need to do, well, that's just going to minimize error. It's going to save time, right? And ultimately what we see with digital payments is that it speeds it up. So like all of those things are net positives for the small business, and their customers. Yeah.
It's I told you sort of as we were getting ready to press record that I would try and keep my own personal experience out of this, because I probably get a bit annoying to folks when they listen to me. But you touched on a couple of things there, and you said it at the beginning around just this tremendous amount of heavy lifting, honestly, for small businesses when trying to make payments, and they come across the unfortunately frequent experience where they can't, right? And they have to they can't do that digitally. They can't do even potentially through platforms like PayEdge. There's limitations, and I'm not saying there's limitations with PayEdge. I'm just saying in general, right? We still can't easily transfer money, from one bank account to another if it's beyond a certain size. We can't pay bills above 3,000 or 25,000 with email money transfer. There's lots of things that cause angst. I'm just actually getting to have to do payroll for my small little wee company, and it's beyond the Interac limit, and so I'm like scratching my head at trying to figure out, do I go get another subscription? And I may do that, but then I have to do that as a business owner, and figure all that stuff out. It's so payments modernization in Canada is a big deal, and along with what was it? What did you call it? OB Day.
OB Day. Yeah.
along with OB Day, November 21st, 2023. On the same day, there was an important announcement also about the Finance Canada supporting the changes in the Canadian Payments Act, and that act that's law, right? And so there's nothing you can really do to get around it unless the laws are changed. And the biggest thing that I think everyone is excited about with that is opening up access to the payment systems in terms of allowing applicants who want to be members of Payments Canada, which gives them the ability to exchange and clear and settle their own payments. And so that's one piece. And then at the same time, the Bank of Canada shared their final regulations for RPAA, which is the Retail Payments Activities Act. And I don't think it was exactly on the 21st. It might have been on the 20th, actually. But anyway, the importance of all of those things is that will also drive innovation. And as payment service providers, register and are supervised under the RPAA, that gives them the ability to then, look at something like becoming an RTR participant directly and applying for that if it makes sense for them. So maybe I'll just stop there and get your take on, those announcements around payments and, what's your view on obviously they're positive, but tell me a bit about what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'd say like cautiously optimistic. That's been, another issue that we've been watching very closely and advocating for where appropriate. Real-time rails, payments modernization, the ability to, again, inject more innovation into the Canadian ecosystem at scale has been long promised, long awaited. And so it was nice to see some of that commentary. And maybe I'll share some data with you around why I think that's so important too, because at Xero, we do a always on report called the Xero Small Business Insights. And so we call it XSBI for short. And XSBI is really anonymized and aggregated data across tens of thousands of small businesses around North America. And in fact, we do this globally. So it started in Australia, and we do it in the UK and New Zealand as well, which gives us a really interesting cut across regions. But if I bring it back to Canada, so our latest results would have been the quarter ending June 2023, so just this past summer. And what we saw in that quarter as it related to payment times was that late payments, so we affectionately refer to these as unauthorized loans, but late payments for that quarter averaged 8.8 days late compared to the previous quarter at 8.1 days. So, it's ticking up. And it's actually, that is a bit of a cause for concern. It's probably not altogether surprising given the economy and everything that we're hearing around pressures that businesses are facing. But it's ticking up, right? And the thing for us to watch there is really what can we do as an ecosystem, and how might some of these regulatory programs and mandates, requirements actually help to bring this down through the use of technology and innovation. So for us, that's a really interesting stat just to keep an eye on, how many days later folks getting paid. And then also the other stat I would say is we've seen from our XSBI data that small businesses in Canada are waiting on average around 28 days to be paid on an invoice. And that number is closer to 21 in markets like Australia.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a full week sooner, right? So as you're a small business owner, what would you do if you got paid a full week sooner on some of your, biggest bills? So it's meaningful, right? It's meaningful in terms of the stress you feel. It's meaningful in terms of the decisions that you can make, the people on your team that you can pay, the suppliers that you can pay. And so there's this amazing butterfly effect that happens as you think about, what happens if we make it easier for small businesses to accept and make payments digitally through like advancements, as you mentioned off the top. And then what's the ripple effect that happens throughout their ecosystem and their circle of influence. and how might that positively impact the Canadian economy. So I know it feels really like big and lofty to say, hey, actually, this is going to be really meaningful, but I truly believe that because small businesses are the backbone of the Canadian economy. And if we can help them get paid 1 day, 2 days, a week sooner, like what would that mean, right? What would that mean for those small businesses?
Yeah, and just having an answer for, I mean, what I hope it drives to like all of that is, like it resonates so much. But if it drives innovation in a way that allows for, a payment solution for any small business need that is efficient, digital, and ideally, drives the fees down.
Yes.
Because that's the other problem. When you, as a consumer, or even as, most of the folks listening to this, I'm sure will be people within our industry, right? So they'll be employed by somebody, not necessarily business owners themselves. But one of the first things you realize as a business owner is, that everything costs a lot. Like, the easiest things to use, like, could be, I don't know, let's say PayPal, or, the things that we've been using as consumers for quite some time. It's a hefty haircut that you take as a small business when you have to use products like that. So I think that's part of the reason why people, why small businesses still are falling back on manual processes, right?
Yeah,
and
the fees barrier was the number one thing that came out of our Money Matters report.
Absolutely.
In terms of why aren't you adopting digital payments? It was the fees. Yeah. So I do think the advancement that you mentioned off the top will dramatically help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should know this, but as a company that is, sort of, I guess, moving money through relationships with your partners, what impact will the payments regulations have on Xero?
Probably less direct impact, right? It's really on our ecosystem and the partners that we work with. We're not really in like a MSP, so it's not it wouldn't directly impact how we do business on the core side of Xero, but it's really what might we offer through our ecosystem, and how might that come through, our financial institution partners, our ecosystem partners. As an example, I know you've interviewed Hamid from Pluto, right? Like how could that unlock the ability for Pluto, who is a Xero app ecosystem partner, to really level up what they're delivering for our mutual customers? And then, how does that in turn increase the overall value of being a Xero customer? Because now you've got your core general ledger and the small business accounting platform plugging into a Pluto, a PayEdge, et cetera, that is just going to allow you to manage your business more tightly. And create the competition that's needed in the payment space. Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't know if this is like it's probably not on strategy, but I can see how, with someone like yourselves, with, serving so many small business customers, that becoming, an RTR participant would actually be very beneficial. And I'm not saying that because that is a possibility, but I just think about that, like all the small businesses out there would benefit from that those types of providers who can reach broad numbers of businesses.
I hear you. And when there are some kind of competitors in our space who are making moves in that direction, but one of the core sort of grounding first principles that we have at Xero is being really good at what we do at the core, which is accounting software and that general ledger, and then being really open and quick to partner with the best in breed for solving pretty much everything else. So, that is like decidedly our strategy, is making sure that we're great partners for developers. We have that open ecosystem. Ultimately, we think it's up to the customer to choose like what the best solution is for them. And our job is just to make that really, to give them the choice. And so, at this point, like continue to focus on that and make sure that we're being the absolute best accounting software that we can be.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Isn't it nice when you can actually have clarity in what you're doing
Absolutely.
versus, yeah. Any other research that you've done that you think would be, there's a lot of, like I mentioned, I was, at the credit union event last week, and I think there's still a bit of a gap in understanding amongst folks that work within some financial institutions on, what small businesses really need. And I wonder if there's anything else that you can share that you haven't already, that would be helpful. There's been a lot of buzz about, creating an ecosystem for a small business. And I think, I mentioned offline, this idea of, connecting into ecosystems and not being more concerned about the value you provide as an FI and less concerned about, customer ownership. There's a CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, which is about the same size as an RBC, but calls themselves a small global bank. So about 80,000 employees. And he's so adamant that the future is not owning the customer. The future is, in all the different markets they're in, providing the best value to the customer. And if that means directly or indirectly, then so be it. So all that being said, what's I
think to build off that and just to touch a little bit on the ecosystem and why, we believe that's so important at Xero. We did have data throughout COVID and the pandemic looking at Xero customers, so specifically in the UK, right? This is post open banking. I talked about the fintech boom there and just the ecosystem being really rich. In the midst of the pandemic, those Xero small business customers that had 5 or more apps connected to their Xero platform, so we can see that data on the back end, right? They suffered lower revenue losses than comparable businesses that didn't have 5 or more apps. They had lower job losses as well.
Oh, wow.
So generally we saw them be more resilient. And, while we could argue causation and correlation, the takeaway for me is there's probably something there in the sense that the more you're leveraging technology to manage your business for all the different facets of what you could use Xero and our ecosystem for, the better able you are to weather some of those storms, right? Whether it's managing your COGS and your timesheet scheduling and payroll, whether it is thinking about big capital decisions you might need to make and whether you have enough cash in the bank to do that or cash incoming based on your accounts receivable. I think that's really powerful to kind of think about, which is how do we help Canadian small businesses benefit from the latest technology to build more resilience into their business, to move them from backwards looking hindsight, i.e., what do I owe for taxes for the year 2023, and forward-looking foresight to say, what's my cash flow position going to be like 6 months from now, 12 months from now? When am I going to need to hire the next person? I'm thinking about making this big capital expenditure. What is the impact of that going to be? So I think there's a real opportunity for us to switch flip the switch on that and move from hindsight to foresight, leveraging technology, right? And then you layer on things like AI on top of that, and then it gets really exciting, right? Because AI is the inputs there are data, and we have so much data.
Yeah, so we didn't touch on that, and I think that is something we should touch on. So maybe you could expand on that a bit, like what could and is AI doing to really advance things?
Yeah. So from a Xero perspective, I could talk about it from a Xero perspective and also from a small business overall perspective. On the Xero side, we've been building AI into our products for years now. It's embedded in products like our bank reconciliation prediction. We have a product called HubDoc, which AI helps with document capture and data entry, Xero expenses, Xero Go. cash flow forecasting in a product that we have called Analytics Plus. So AI is everywhere within our product and really helping to like surface insights, automate highly manual, repetitive, predictable tasks, and collectively give people back time and, as I mentioned, insights. So we're already saving our customers a ton of time each year on that. And so that's how Xero has been leveraging AI. Recently, we also launched a Gen AI test in our Xero Central product. Yeah. So we, like if you think about accounting, it's very black and white. So it's not really the best place for Gen AI at the moment in its current iteration. But where we have applied Gen AI is actually within our support tooling.
Yeah.
So if you go to Xero Central, which is used every day by our customers around the world, and you have a question about something in Xero, we've actually added and are testing a Gen AI layer to try and surface that in an even better way to you in a more intuitive way. And so we're excited about that to hopefully cut down on support time, on the time it takes you to find the right answer, and then escalations to our support team required. So pretty excited about that test.
Yeah. Awesome.
But I think if I zoom out to just small businesses in general, there's a massive opportunity. And we have done research on this, asking Canadian small businesses, what do you think about AI? How are you implementing it? And the overall sentiment I would share with you, Sue, is they're being very cautious around it. There are many small businesses that see the impact that AI could have. They don't know where to start.
Yeah.
They don't know how to apply it to their business today. And they need some guidance with that. So whether it's their advisors, like their accountants or bookkeepers or financial advisors, we owe it to them to help them a little bit understand where can this be applied and to dream big, but start small, right? Like not to be overwhelmed by not being an expert and just to say, hey, like this is actually already getting embedded in a lot of your tools today. And so it's worth you understanding that and then trying to apply it.
Yeah, it's you just made me, I don't know if this looked like an insight or not, but it is for me. It's like when you look at ChatGPT and when it came out in the beginning of this year, which is crazy, eh? It's just 1 year.
This is the 1 year anniversary, basically.
Crazy. The thing about ChatGPT is, as cool as it is, it also represents probably the easiest way to leverage generative AI. And, I can imagine if, okay, you're going to tell me this is like probably a stupid scenario.
I would never, Sue.
You can. But, when I go to looking for information about, how often do I have to pay my GST? It could be anything, any piece of information as a business owner that I have no clue what the answer is because we just don't, right? As business owners, I may have a tax accountant, I may not. Yeah. I may have, I may be a Xero customer, I may not even use an accounting platform. And so, all of those things I think should progress. I think people, don't understand the beauty of having an accounting platform that just streamlines everything for you. But then when you've got those questions, like, wouldn't chat be the perfect place to be able to, and whoever that, advisor is or that expert is that you need to get that answer from, like, geez, just plug ChatGPT into the government.
The CRI website.
Oh my God, just help me, like, for God's sakes. Oh man. Anyway.
No, that's great. And I think you're thinking about it in the right way, right? Which is there are some needlessly painful things that you have to go through as a small business owner today.
Yeah.
And the headline is like, very shortly, AI will be able to help with that, if not already.
Yeah. That's great. Awesome. So, I think we probably covered everything. Did we miss anything that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. We talked about, I'm this was great. Thank you.
All the big major topics. I look forward to seeing Xero in 2024. I'm sure you're going to be actively involved in, the ongoing discussions as open banking and this payments modernization work gets underway. And so maybe the final thing would be, if I'm someone who, whatever type of organization wants to partner, or if I'm a business and wants to, use Xero, what are the ways they should approach getting started?
Yeah. So if you're a small business customer listening on here and you have a good account or bookkeeper, ask them about getting on Xero. If you don't, visit us at xero.com. That's xero.com. And if you're looking to partner with us, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure I connect you with the right team and group here. Depending on if you're a financial institution or a fintech, we're always open to having a conversation. Our philosophy is generally the more the merrier in this space. So I would love to connect.
That's great. Wonderful. Well, thanks very much, Faye. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Looking for more insights? Visit us at fintechscanada.ca or follow us on LinkedIn. We'll see you next time for more on Canada's latest fintech innovations.